She sat quietly in seat 13F, just another tired passenger with a cheap book in her hands. No one knew her name. No one knew what she once did in the sky. But when the plane began to fall, two F-22 pilots heard one word on the radio, Valkyrie, and it stopped them completely cold. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Captain Ana Reyes sat in seat 13F on flight Delta 442, flying from Chicago to London. She wore a plain gray jacket and old jeans. Her hair was tied back in a simple bun. She held a cheap paperback book in her hands, but she was not really reading it. She was just looking at the pages so no one would talk to her. Next to her, in seat 13E, a young man in a suit typed on his laptop. He did not look at her even once. Across the aisle, a mother tried to calm her small son, who kept kicking the seat in front of him. Ana smiled at the boy once, then went back to her book. No one on this flight knew who she really was. To them, she was just another tired traveler heading to a business meeting or a family visit. That is exactly how Ana wanted it. 2 years ago, Ana Reyes was one of the best fighter pilots in the United States Air Force. Her call sign was Valkyrie. Pilots who trained with her said she had a gift that could not be taught. She could take control of a plane that was falling apart in the sky and bring it home safely. She had done this 3 times during her career, saving pilots whose jets had been badly damaged in training accidents. Every time, experts said the plane should have crashed. Every time, Ana found a way to land it. Young pilots at her base studied videos of her flights. Instructors used her name as an example of what a truly skilled pilot could do when they trusted their training more than their fear. But that skill came with a heavy price. After her 3rd rescue, Ana began to have terrible dreams almost every night. She dreamed of falling through the sky with no control, the ground rushing toward her. She would wake up shaking, unable to breathe properly for several minutes. She started drinking more and more coffee just to stay awake during the day, because sleep no longer gave her any rest. Her hands would shake slightly when she was not flying, though they were perfectly steady the moment she took the controls. Her commanding officers noticed this change in her, but they said nothing, because in the air, she was still the best pilot they had ever seen. Then came the mission that changed everything. It was a secret test flight, high above the Arctic Ocean, testing a new kind of aircraft. Something went wrong with the plane's systems at a very high altitude. The aircraft lost power and began spinning out of control. Ana tried everything she knew, but nothing worked. She was forced to eject from the plane. Her parachute opened with a hard pull that hurt her shoulders, and then she fell into freezing Arctic water. The cold hit her like 1,000 needles at once. She only had a few minutes before the cold water could stop her heart. A small fishing boat far from the usual shipping routes happened to see her parachute in the sky. The fisherman pulled her out of the water, half frozen, barely awake. But because the location was so remote, and because there was confusion about who to contact, the message about her rescue never reached the right people in time. By the time anyone understood what had really happened, the Air Force had already told the world that Ana Reyes had died in the crash. There was a funeral. Her family cried. Her name was placed on a wall for pilots who lost their lives in service. As far as the Air Force knew, Captain Ana Reyes, call sign Valkyrie, was gone forever. Ana spent 3 months recovering in a small hospital in a quiet coastal town. Her body slowly healed, but her mind did not heal the same way. She had panic attacks at random times. The sound of a jet engine, something she used to love, now made her chest feel tight and her hands shake. A kind doctor helped her talk through what had happened to her, not just the crash, but years of stress from being the pilot everyone depended on. During one of their talks, the doctor asked her a simple question. If everyone believes you are already gone, what do you want your life to look like now? That question stayed with Ana for a long time. She realized she had a choice. She could make a call, tell the Air Force she was alive, and go back to a life of danger and endless pressure. Or she could stay quiet and start again as someone new. She chose to stay quiet. She was tired in a way that sleep could never fix. She had given many years of her life to saving others, and she felt she had earned the right to simply live for herself. She moved to a small town, took a normal office job, and slowly built a peaceful, ordinary life. She made new friends who knew her only as Anna, a quiet woman who liked long walks and simple coffee. For 2 years, she did not go near an airport, except this one time, for a work trip she could not avoid. This flight to London was supposed to be simple. A short business meeting, then straight back home. She told herself flying again would be fine, since she was just a passenger now, with no control over anything, and nothing to prove. That plan lasted only a few hours into the flight. The first sign of trouble was a loud, sudden bang from somewhere near the front of the plane. Many passengers barely noticed it, but Anna's ears, trained for years to notice small sounds in engines, knew instantly that something serious had happened. Moments later, the plane shook hard, and the emergency lights came on. Over the intercom, the captain's voice tried to stay calm, but everyone could hear the fear underneath it. He explained that the aircraft had suffered serious damage to one of its wings after striking debris in the sky, and that they were experiencing problems with the controls. In the cockpit, Captain Mark Ellison and his co-pilot fought with instruments that no longer responded the way they should. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Fuel was leaking from the damaged wing. The plane began a slow, uncontrolled descent toward the ocean below. Ellison called for the emergency checklist, but both pilots quickly understood that nothing in their training covered this kind of damage. Passengers screamed as the plane tilted to one side. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling. A young boy across the aisle from Anna began to cry, holding tightly to his mother's arm. Anna sat still, gripping the armrests, her mind working automatically, running through the same calculations she used to do as a fighter pilot. She recognized the pattern of the emergency immediately. Wing damage, fuel leak, loss of control on one side, and uncontrolled descent toward open water. This was almost exactly the kind of emergency she had trained pilots to survive years ago. She told herself this was not her problem anymore. She had left this life behind. She had earned peace. But as she looked around the cabin, at the crying child, at the frightened faces of people who had no idea what was happening to their plane, she understood that staying silent would mean letting all of them die when she knew how to help. She unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up. A flight attendant tried to stop her, telling her to sit back down immediately. Anna spoke calmly but firmly, telling the attendant her name, her old rank, and that she used to fly high-performance military jets and had trained pilots for emergencies exactly like this one. The attendant looked confused but ran to tell the captain. A few tense moments later, the cockpit door opened. At an air base near the coast, 2 fighter pilots were called for an emergency scramble. Captain Diego Cruz and Lieutenant Priya Nair ran to their F-22 jets the moment the alarm sounded. Within minutes, they were in the sky, flying at top speed toward the damaged passenger plane. Over the radio, ground control explained the situation: a commercial jet with heavy wing damage, losing fuel, descending slowly but steadily toward the ocean, with no clear way to save it using standard emergency procedures. As the 2 fighter jets approached, they could see the damage clearly. A large section of the passenger plane's wing was torn open, with fuel trailing behind it in the air. The plane was descending in a slow, unsteady spiral. Diego radioed the passenger plane directly, asking for a status update. The response he got surprised him completely. A calm, steady female voice came over the radio, giving her name and an old military call sign that every fighter pilot at his base had studied in training. She said her name was Valkyrie, and that she was alive, and that she was currently in the cockpit trying to save the plane. For a moment, neither Diego nor Priya could speak. They had both learned about Valkyrie's famous rescues years ago, during their own pilot training. They had been told she died in a classified accident 2 years earlier. Hearing her voice now, calm and clear over the radio, felt impossible. Diego's hands froze on his controls for a second, and his mind went back to the training videos he had watched as a young cadet, videos that showed her guiding damaged jets safely to the ground. He had never imagined he would one day hear that same voice speaking to him live, from inside a burning, falling passenger plane. Priya broke the silence first, asking ground control to confirm the identity, since a call sign like this could not simply appear out of nowhere after 2 years. Ground control took a moment to check old service records, then confirmed that the voice matched. Priya felt a strange mix of fear and hope rise in her chest. If this really was Valkyrie, then maybe, just maybe, this impossible situation had a chance of ending differently than every training scenario had ever predicted. Diego finally responded, asking her to confirm the exact damage to the wing so he could describe what he was seeing from his fighter jet. Anna, now speaking with full authority, asked for details on the fuel leak and the way the wing was reacting to airflow. Inside the cockpit of the passenger plane, Anna explained her plan to Captain Ellison. She told him that fighting to keep the wings level was making things worse, because it put more stress on the damaged wing and used up fuel and control faster. Instead, she suggested something that felt completely wrong to a normal pilot, letting the plane bank gently toward the healthy wing and using engine power differently on each side to balance the damage. Ellison hesitated, saying this went against everything he had been trained to do. Anna told him she understood his fear, but that this method had worked before, and that the numbers, not feelings, needed to guide their decisions now. After a long pause, Ellison agreed to trust her. Step by step, Anna guided the pilots through small, careful changes. A gentle turn toward the healthy wing. A slight reduction in power on one engine, and an increase on the other. The plane's violent shaking slowly eased. The rate at which they were falling toward the ocean began to slow down. Diego and Priya, flying close beside the damaged plane in their fighters, reported every visible change in the wing structure, helping Anna understand exactly how much time they had left before the damage became impossible to control. For the next 20 minutes, Anna calmly directed the flight, adjusting engine power, guiding small changes in direction, and preparing the crew for an emergency landing at the nearest airport with a long enough runway. She explained that they would need to land the plane while still slightly banked to one side, because trying to straighten it out completely could cause them to lose control entirely. Captain Ellison found this idea terrifying, but Anna's calm voice and clear instructions gave him the confidence to keep following her lead. As they approached the airport, fire trucks and ambulances lined the runway, ready for the emergency landing. Diego and Priya stayed close in their fighter jets, watching the wing carefully as the plane descended. Anna talked Ellison through the final moments, telling him exactly when to reduce the bank angle and when to bring the plane level just before touching the ground. The landing was hard and rough, the plane skidding slightly off the runway before finally coming to a stop in the grass beside it. For a few seconds, there was complete silence inside the cabin. Then passengers began to cry, hug each other, and thank whoever they believed had helped them. All 280 passengers and crew members survived. News of the rescue spread quickly. Reporters wanted to know who the mysterious woman in seat 13F really was, and how a pilot who had been declared dead 2 years earlier had suddenly appeared to save an entire plane. Anna held a small press conference the next day, explaining honestly what had happened to her, the crash in the Arctic, the mistaken report of her death, and her difficult decision to stay hidden while she recovered from the mental strain of her old job. She told the reporters she would not be returning to active military duty, since her health could not handle that kind of pressure again, but she wanted to use what she knew to help others. In the months that followed, Anna started a small training program for pilots, teaching the emergency techniques she had used to save both military and civilian aircraft over the years. She worked closely with Captain Ellison, who joined her program as an instructor after his own experience on that flight. Slowly, more pilots learned her methods, and some of them later used those same skills to handle emergencies of their own, saving passengers who might not have survived otherwise. Anna never went back to being a fighter pilot. She built a quieter kind of life, one where she helped others through teaching instead of constant danger. She still remembered her years as Valkyrie, the fear, the exhaustion, the terrible dreams that never fully left her. But she also understood now that stepping onto that plane in seat 13F had given her something she thought she had lost forever, a real reason to keep going, and the peace of knowing that her years of hard training had finally helped save the people who needed her most. Diego and Priya never forgot that day either. Both pilots later visited Anna's training program, wanting to learn more about the methods she had used to guide a dying aircraft back to the ground. They told her that flying beside that damaged plane, listening to her calm voice on the radio, had changed the way they thought about flying forever. It was not just about speed or power anymore, but about staying calm, trusting numbers, and never giving up even when everything looked impossible. Anna welcomed them into her small classroom, sharing lessons that no manual could ever fully explain. Years later, people who had been on that flight still spoke about the quiet woman from seat 13F. Some called her lucky. Others called her a hero. Anna herself never used either word. She simply said that she had been given a rare kind of training, and when the moment came, she used it. She often told her students that anyone could learn to handle the impossible, if they were willing to stay calm, trust their training, and act when others hesitated. That lesson, more than any single flight, became her true legacy.